take the little small square, press it out with your finger, complete it with the iron, and then take the completed square over to the cutting board and square it up. And I did that by lining up the edge of the square with the edge of the ruler. And then the last step is to cut off the excess from underneath, leaving a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. This is the block that we just completed by snowballing the edge of it 3 different times. Another example is this one here. You can see there's a smaller snowball, a wider one, and then finally the final corner. And then here it's just been snowballed twice. All of this was done with using the snowball ruler, but not necessarily lining up your square on the square that's designated, or the lines designated for the size square that you're working with. So just being a little innovative with the ruler will produce a lot of different results. Another technique to use the snowball ruler is by coming up with 4 different corners being a different fabric. And the way that is accomplished is you choose one main fabric for your large square and then 4 smaller squares. You do your marking as we've done in the other snowball demonstrations, where you line up the size of your snowball block with the size of the red line in the ruler, and then mark your diagonal line, but you don't need to worry about marking the vertical and horizontal line for this example. Once those lines are marked, then you will go to your sewing machine, take one of your little squares, slip it under the corner, and sew across the diagonal line. And you'll do that 4 different times with your 4 different squares. Once everything is sewn on the 4 diagonal lines, press out the corners and then square it up, and you have a block that has 4 different corners. Now these corners, you can also work it to where these 2 would match, those 2 would match, maybe these 3 would match, and that one would be a different color of fabric. But just another way to use the snowball ruler. Another example of the snowball ruler is to take 2 squares that are coordinating, mark your corners like we've done in the previous examples with the ruler, but this time rather than doing our usual cutting, we're actually going to cut through twice, and the way that's accomplished is cutting from this point to this point, this point to this point. Then you end up with 3 segments. The end segments, you will take your scissors and cut halfway in the middle of the top fabric. Be sure and don't cut through both fabrics. Press them out, square it up, and you have 2 units like this. One comes from this end and one comes from that end. Take these 2 units, place one here, take one of your middle units, place it here, and you end up with this block. This is commonly known as a friendship block, a Christmas ball block, or a Japanese lantern block. Another way is to complete your snowball. Once it's completed, cut it apart in the horizontal middle and then the vertical middle. You'll end up with 4 of these units, and then you twist and turn them and sew them back together, and you end up with a pinwheel. I'm going to show you several examples of some snowball blocks that I've completed. The first ones, I've taken half square triangles and snowballed the 2 opposite edges of the center line. This one I snowballed the opposite ends, but I snowballed the edges that have the center line running through it. And this half square triangle, I snowballed all 4 corners. The next example is where I snowballed the corners twice so that you get this little decorative edge in there, and I took the snowball block, cut it in half both directions, twisted the units, and sewed it back together. This is actually 4 little snowball blocks put together to make one larger block. This block is 4 half square triangles that have been snowballed on all 4 corners and then sewn together for a main block. This is to show you how you can actually snowball your corners in two different sizes. They don't have to be snowballed the same size. And I've snowballed 4 different blocks, put an extra little accent piece in here, and sewed those together for one block. Another way that appears on one of my other demonstrations is how you can strip piece your block and then snowball the corners of it. This is half square triangles, 4 different half square triangles, but this time I just snowballed the outside corners of the block. This one I just snowballed one corner of several of the small blocks and worked it in to the whole block. Snowballs really take on an interesting effect when you start combining them with other blocks. So these are 2 snowball blocks combined with 2 other blocks. And then this is just to have a little small accent of one corner of the block snowballed. In this example, I created a flower by snowballing 2 corners, but I turned each time that I sewed the blocks together a different direction so that it created a flower, and then put a little yo-yo in the middle. The snowball ruler can also be used to snowball rectangles, as this shows in this pumpkin. It's slightly more rectangular than it is square. In addition, on this block, I just continue to snowball and create borders, which sort of looks like a pineapple block here. And then the last example I'd like to show you is this little music note where I snowballed 3 corners of these blocks, and then again I snowballed a rectangle. So don't forget to use your snowball ruler for some interesting effects for rectangles. And that completes the examples that I have for you today. Thank you for watching the snowball demonstration today, and I invite you to visit our other YouTubes on the website. In addition, you may purchase the snowball rulers through the website. Thank you.